Welcome to this edition of Head to Head. I'm your host, Cam McKinney, and this is episode number 419 of the podcast. And on this episode, I'm talking about Manny Machado speaking out against analytics in baseball. No matter how you feel about him, infielder Manny Machado has been one of the best hitters in MLB since joining the majors in 2012 with 380 home runs. Only Mike Trout, Giancarlo Stanton, and Aaron Judge have hit more, 1,176 RBIs. Only Freddie Freeman, Paul Goldschmidt, and Nolan Arenado have driven in more runs in that time span, and he has 2,107 hits. Only Jose Altuve, Freddie Freeman, and Paul Goldschmidt have more. I tell you all that to say the numbers and statistics usually favor Machado, but he himself is not the biggest fan of newer metrics people are using to judge baseball players. Here's what Machado himself said at his locker after a recent loss to the New York Mets. Quote, "I just wish we can get the analytics out of the way. I think there's too many stats out there, too many stats. Way too many numbers. I don't even know half of the stuff that goes up there. I look at the board sometimes and I even ask some of the guys like, what is WCC, VBB, whatever it is? What are these names that are being created?" End quote. As you can imagine, the reactions to these comments have not been great. People have mentioned it's odd for Machado to be saying this at a time where he's really struggling. Yes, he's got 11 home runs, but is only hitting 166. I personally don't have a positive or negative view about Machado's opinions on the subject. It's just interesting to hear a player talk about something that's become prevalent. Baseball forever has been a sport about the numbers. But now more than ever, the numbers have become complicated to follow, and one would really have to obsess over them to fully understand them. Now, one could make the argument that an everyday baseball player should be able to do so. As for whether or not you should be surprised a player like Manny Machado feels this way, absolutely not. If we're talking about a player who entered the league in 2020, then yeah, I'd be a bit surprised to learn they were against analytics. But we are talking about someone who came into Major League Baseball in 2012. They were simpler times. Also, his main job is to be good at baseball, not to fully understand the numbers. Speaking for myself, I love baseball, but the stats that I follow are still the basics: batting average, home runs, and RBIs. But I'm not against analytics. I think they make for good conversations about how some players are better or worse than you think they are. I'm a fan of Brian Kenny of MLB Network and watch his show MLB Now about analytics on a daily basis. But I don't think numbers are the end-all be-all. I think a good conversation to have about all of this is who exactly is happy about the current state of baseball, because you have a star player in Manny Machado who thinks the game is evolving into something that's not very interesting, and then you have a guy like Brian Kenny who is on MLB Network all of the time talking about how he wished the game would go even further with its changes. I mean, just recently on his show, MLB Now, on MLB Network, he was talking about how the Padres should use Mason Miller in a capacity unlike the classic closer who only comes in the ninth inning. What Brian Kenny was proposing was that the Padres should use Mason Miller in the biggest moment of any baseball game, no matter the inning. So if the Padres needed a huge out in the fourth inning, they should go to Mason Miller. The basic idea being that Mason Miller should enter the game in its most pressure-packed moment, no matter the inning. And I get what he's saying, because if you only have a star reliever who only enters the game in the ninth inning and you never have a lead, why does it matter that you have Mason Miller? I am a fan of the Boston Red Sox. They're not winning a lot of games lately, so why does it matter that you have the second best closer in all of baseball in Aroldis Chapman? That's just an example of Brian Kenny taking a new angle, looking at the game in a different way that I agree with. I don't always agree with the extreme ways that he looks at the numbers and gives you an opinion, but I understand where he's coming from. I guess what I'm left wondering is, do most baseball players feel the same way that Manny Machado does? Or are more people inviting of the ideas of Brian Kenny? Like, for example, does Mason Miller want to be Dennis Eckersley, or does he want to be a different kind of modern relief pitcher? I don't have the answers to that. I only know how Manny Machado feels about analytics because he openly gave his opinion about it. I feel like most baseball players today do not do what Manny Machado just did, and for good reasons, because a lot of people would have heated conversations about those said opinions. I am taking his opinion seriously because we are talking about a future Hall of Fame player. Manny Machado is going to Cooperstown. He's been one of the best hitters of his era. So when he speaks on a topic about baseball, I'm going to take him seriously. Yes, it's not the best time for him to have these opinions. I mean, if he said something during the off season, that would be one thing. He is clearly saying something because he's frustrated about where the Padres are at as a baseball team. I mean, this is a team that its best hitters are not playing at their best. I mean, Fernando Tatis Jr. has 1 home run on the season. Jackson Merrill is hitting below 200. I mean, their 3 best offensive players, Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr., and Jackson Merrill, are underperforming. I've heard some people give the opinion that this is disrespectful to the Padres front office, that the Padres probably don't want to hear this from Manny Machado, that he should just take the numbers and improve his game offensively. I get all of that. Maybe this isn't what the Padres want Manny Machado to be saying. But guys, it has to mean something that Manny Machado is the one saying it. The guy who you have routinely seen have 30-plus home run seasons. I mean, the contract that the Padres gave Machado has largely panned out. He is getting up there. He is up there with some of the best players in Padres history. He's not Tony Gwynn Jr., but he's not that far behind. He'll probably make the Baseball Hall of Fame as a member of the San Diego Padres. Now, I remember him fondly as a young player for the Baltimore Orioles, but he has had more success as a member of the Padres. We are talking about the franchise leader in home runs. And I guess I'm going to come out and say it. We all know that Manny Machado, by season's end, is going to have a productive season. I think he still has a chance to hit 30 homers. He's at 11. The batting average is going to improve. To be mad at him just feels like you're kicking a guy while he's down. I think this is a guy who has had this opinion for a while, and he was in a bad mood, and he felt the need to share his opinion with the entire world. Why people are even taking this topic seriously is because it's coming from Manny Machado. Now, he's not the face of the game. He's a star player. I would argue he's a superstar player. I think this conversation would be even more interesting if someone of the likes of Aaron Judge or even Shohei Ohtani spoke out against analytics and how helpful or unhelpful they find them. We just really don't know the consensus viewpoint of analytics by modern baseball players. We don't know how they all feel about analytics. We obviously know how front offices feel about analytics. They use it to make key decisions. And again, we obviously know how media members feel about analytics. People like Brian Kenny love analytics, and I do think it makes for interesting conversations about the game of baseball, how the game used to be played, and how it should be played now. How Machado probably views the game of baseball is quite simple. He probably thinks, I hit a home run, that's a good thing. I strike out, that's a bad thing. Clearly, this is a guy who does not want to be inundated by modern numbers that most of us cannot make sense of. I'm not a math guy, so that's probably why a lot of the modern numbers drives me insane, but this is coming from a real baseball player, a star baseball player, a multi-time all-star, a guy who is going to make the Hall of Fame. I just really want to know how many other modern players agree with this way of thinking. Here's a thought I had. I think it's a good idea for an organization to use analytics to make key decisions, like use analytics to say whether or not Manny Machado is going to be a good player in 4 to 5 years from now. But maybe you don't have to tell him to use analytics. Maybe that should be the divide. Maybe the general manager and the front office should know the numbers. But maybe you don't have to tell the guy to focus on the numbers himself. Or better yet, maybe you give him the choice. This feels like Manny Machado telling the Padres and telling the world, I don't want to talk about your zany numbers. I'm good at the game of baseball. Just let me go through the season, and by the end, I'm going to be the same old Manny Machado. And to a certain degree, I agree with that. I think Manny Machado is going to be just fine. I think the Padres are going to make the playoffs. I think some people are just piling on Machado and the Padres, and they don't really care about the conversations surrounding analytics. I care about it because I like talking about baseball, I like watching baseball, and I like the current topics about analytics. But how prevalent they should be is a fascinating conversation to have. Like, you hear people keep saying that the classic numbers no longer matter, that batting average doesn't really matter. Don't you believe a large reason why Aaron Judge won AL MVP over Cal Raleigh was because Aaron Judge won a batting title? He had the highest batting average in the American League last season, and I think that was a crucial part of him winning the MVP award. And Cal Raleigh almost won the MVP because he hit the most home runs in the American League. Those are two classic, easy to follow baseball stats. The highest batting average and the highest amount of home runs. I get it. You can make the argument that both of those players had great numbers outside of those classic stats. But isn't it funny how the MVP is usually great in those classic stats? People are still relying on the old numbers. Yes, the new numbers are informative, but I don't think they're taking over the way Manny Machado seems to feel like that they are. Again, people think that Manny Machado is off to a bad start because he has a 166 batting average. If he was hitting 255 with the exact same numbers he has right now, nobody would be against him. Batting average is a classic baseball stat. It is a simple baseball stat, and one that I still find to be very useful when talking about the sport of baseball. I'm not saying every player I think is good has to have a 270 or higher batting average. It's just a good metric to use of somebody you think is a good hitter. And don't get me wrong, people don't care about batting average the way they used to. Luis Arraez has won numerous numerous batting titles. He may win another one with a fourth different team. It's not what it used to be. Winning the batting title used to mean more. But don't tell me winning the batting title didn't help Aaron Judge win the MVP last season, because that's just wrong. It definitely helped him win over Cal Raleigh. Getting back to Manny Machado, it should be noted that these comments are coming from a 33-year-old who has been in the game again since 2012. I really do wonder how the young players of the sport feel about analytics. Does Junior Caminero care about analytics? I mean, one might think that because he plays for the Rays, they probably force that kind of thing on him, but we just don't know how a young player like that feels about numbers. Here's where I land with Machado's comments. I understand where he's coming from. He's clearly frustrated about the current state of analytics in baseball, but I would tell him this. I don't think we're judging hitters in a different way than how we've been judging them. I think if Manny Machado hits 35 homers and drives in 100 runs, most people would tell you he had an excellent season. I think the way we are judging pitchers is completely different than the way we used to judge pitchers. I don't think we look at a guy who's won 15 to 20 games and say, we're automatically going to give you a Cy Young award. No, we look beyond that. We go so deep into the numbers. We look at the strikeouts. We also look at earned run average way more than we used to. I mean, I'm not really sure about how innings really impact winning a Cy Young anymore. I mean, once upon a time, CC Sabathia won the Cy Young in 2007 over Josh Beckett because CC Sabathia had thrown way more innings than Josh Beckett. I'm not sure the same outcome would have happened today. Paul Skeens won the National League Cy Young Award with a 10-10 record. That is unheard of if we are talking about the game of baseball 20 years ago. That is how drastically the game has changed. My point is, how we judge pitchers has changed way more than how we judge position players. With position players, we love to say the number WAR, we love to talk about other factors, but still at the end of the day, if a guy wins the Triple Crown in hitting, he's probably going to walk away with the MVP award. We're still going to celebrate him like the best player in the game. But when it comes to pitching, a guy could literally win 22 games and not win a Cy Young. Analytics has impacted pitching far more than it has impacted hitting and offensive numbers, and how we casual baseball fans and media members talk about hitters. A lot of people thought Cal Raleigh should have won the MVP award because he hit 60 homers. It's as simple as that. It's not because of his defensive metrics. It's not because he played the catcher position. It's because he hit 60 homers. That's how simple it is to still talk about hitting in modern baseball. It still comes down to those basic stats. I don't think anyone is looking at Manny Machado's current season and saying he's not good because they're looking at newer metrics. No, we're looking at the old classic baseball stats and saying, guy, you're only hitting 166. You need to hit better than that for the Padres to be one of the best players in baseball. The 11 homers is good. Bump that batting average to about 250 or 265, and now we're talking. When you talk about hitting, it is still simple. Yes, you can be blown away by modern numbers. Most of them I don't understand, but at the end of the day, it's still about home runs. It's still about RBIs, and to a certain degree, it's still about batting average. It's cool to see the reactions to these comments. I mean, most of the reaction from the media has been negative. What I really want to know is the reaction of other players in the game. How does Aaron Judge feel about what Manny Machado is saying? How does Shohei Ohtani feel about this? Mike Trout. I mean, ask the players how they feel about analytics in the sport of baseball, because I'm guessing a lot of them feel the same way that Manny Machado does. I just want to know if it's the majority of them. Do most of them feel the way that Machado feels about analytics in the sport? When it comes to Machado, the way he feels about this is not going to change, nor probably should it. I mean, he's had great success up until this point. We are talking about a future Hall of Famer, a guy who has the chance to hit 500 plus career home runs. I mean, he is what he is at this point. He's not all of a sudden going to fall in love with analytics. Is it a bit silly for him to talk about this kind of thing when the Padres are falling off the rails? Yes, absolutely, but it's not doing anybody harm, and it's made for some interesting conversations, which I'm always a fan of. What I would say is don't expect to see Manny Machado as a guest on MLB Now anytime soon. Clearly not a fan of analytics in baseball. I guess I'll end on this note. His feelings about this should not change your opinions about him as a baseball player. I still think very highly of Manny Machado, a future Hall of Famer. Thanks for listening to this edition of Head to Head. I'm Cam McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every week on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So please rate, review, and subscribe.